Hey, he's Bruce the Blog.
And he's Bazzo, and you're watching Bruce the Blog Goes Bazzo.
Good evening, everybody. And we have a special guest before Bruce goes on, so you know.
Right, we'll get to that soon.
Right, but I want to let people know we do have another special guest this week.
Okay.
Go ahead. You said you wanted to start off differently this week.
Well, yeah, but first we're going to roll the credits.
I
Which
know,
is
but
happening
I like
right
to
now.
make things talk. Told you before.
Okay, hello again, everybody, and welcome to Bruce the Blog Goes Bazzo, which is a weekly community commentary show where we talk about a lot of different things. It could be politics or community activities that are going on. Of course, we always like to talk about the school system and our young people. We're going to start off this week. I just want to remind
this is always unrehearsed.
What, Bazzo?
You should tell them this is always unrehearsed.
Yeah, I think it's obvious it's unrehearsed, but anyhow, they can decide for themselves whether it's rehearsed or not. I just want to remind everybody this week that based on popular demand, our company, which puts on this show, Chase Media Group, is going back to the original, beloved, familiar penny saver. You know, there's a lot of community news, and we think that's great. You can get community news in a lot of different ways now, but as we like to say, there's only one penny saver, and so we just want to remind you to be looking for this again in all of your mailboxes because it goes to every home every week. We also have a salute of the week, as we have started to do every week, and we want to make sure that you're aware that the weekend of August 5 to 6 is the Peekskill Celebration, which is one of the greatest regional events in this area, in the Hudson Valley region. There's a lot of stuff going on at Peekskill Celebration, starting Friday, August 5. The Dragon Boat races on Saturday are always a highlight, and yes, the Penny Saver crew, including yours truly, will be out there, you know, doing one of these, or actually it's sort of one of these. And whether we win or not, it's always a lot of fun, and there's music, and there's food, and there's vendors, there's fireworks Saturday night that Entergy puts on. So if you go to peekskillcelebration.org, you could read, I'm sorry, peekskillcelebration.com, you could find out what's going on at Peekskill Celebration.
And so now, should know,
yes,
if they got relatives in the northern counties, they could take the Hudson line and not drive in and have to deal with the traffic in the crowds.
That's a great point,
The Hudson line
Bazzo,
stops right in Peekskill.
Right, no, that's a great point. Thanks for pointing it out. And now we want...
My business.
Yeah, that's true, that's right. He's in the transportation business. Now we want to welcome...
Can we do a salvo? You just did your salvo.
Oh, you want to do your salvo now?
Yes,
okay, go ahead.
That done.
You know, as we don't have to remind you, this is unrehearsed. So go ahead. I didn't realize you wanted to do it now.
It's important. We have our election season going on. The petitions are now in. We're going to sit with people on the ballot. Now comes the hard part of winning election. And I want to remind people that are running for office, and whether you feel, whatever you feel about your opponent or their ideas, their family, their way of earning a living, their businesses is off limits. And if you go there, you will get taken to task in print online about this. You go after people on their issues and their ideas. Leave the family and the means of feeding their family alone.
Okay, no, and I know Bazzo in his columns, his blogs that are widely read, has made this point before. And you know, one of the reasons that he's a columnist for us and has always been, you know, a very popular commentator is his consistency of principle, I would say. I mean, what you do, you repeat those things and you stick with them, and they're, well, people do argue with them, but I think they're hard to argue with. We want to welcome this week our guest. Steve Katz is the New York State Assemblyman for the 99th District, And so, first of all, welcome, Steve. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Welcome, Steve.
And one of the things, if you're not already familiar with Steve and his story, he is a doctor of veterinary medicine, and you're based, Steve, in
Bronx.
In the Bronx. But what's interesting about Steve, and the reason he won, we all believe, is because Steve is what you might call a new breed of politician. He ran sort of bucking the party system. He ran as a Tea Party, right? Tea Party candidate. And he came out of nowhere, virtually. And one of the things that anybody who's either listened to him, read about him, we talk to him on a regular basis, is that he is extremely independent-minded. He says what he thinks. He doesn't feel that party comes first. He feels that people come first. Absolutely. And so that's why we felt everybody watching this, would gain a lot from hearing his views, and we hope to maybe even have what amounts to almost a scoop in terms of what goes on in Albany. So let's get started. Bazzo, I know you want.
In our first show, we talked about you as the Assemblyman and the moniker you've been given up in Albany, Dr. No. Can you explain how you got that moniker, Dr. No?
Well, at this point in what we do in the Assembly and what the primary job in Albany is to vote on bills.
Right.
You get you press the red button and it's no, and you press the green button and it's yes. Because of the nature of the bills that are put in front of me, most of them are truly unacceptable.
On what basis?
On the basis of a couple of different bases, Bruce. One would be the fact that it's a one-house bill. A one-house bill means that it will never become law.
And they know that when they introduce it?
Absolutely.
And why is it introduced?
It's introduced so that they can make a political statement to their constituents saying, see what I've done? When they know. When they know. The way it works in Albany is it's just like the United States Congress, where you've got two houses. You've got the House of Representatives. You've got the Senate in the United States government, the federal government. Here in Albany, we've got the Assembly, which is the lower house. We've got the state Senate. Just like in the United States government, the federal government, in order for a bill to become a law, it has to pass the Assembly.
Right.
It has to pass the Senate. And once it passes both those houses, the bill will then be presented to the governor for him to either sign it into law or to veto it. If you have a bill that has, in the Assembly, that has no comparative bill, no sister bill in the Senate, it will go nowhere because it can't become a law. This year, there were a total of 8,000 bills, one way or another, that were submitted to the Assembly. Out of those, we actually voted on 1,000. Out of those, I'll have the statistics. The overwhelming majority of them were either one-house bills or what they call home rule bills. Okay, which is a whole nother story. I have an article that's coming out.
So you're saying, Steve, that we're a little more than halfway through the year, and there's already been 1,000 that you voted on.
That's it.
So you're saying, like, by the end of the year, what will it be? 2,000?
No, we're finished. Oh, thank God.
No, but I'm saying, but then you start again in September.
Yes.
The calendar year. I mean.
Calendar year. Yeah, it'll go on. I mean, this is one of the least years. The record is 1,700.
Yeah, but now we're talking about these one-house bills. Now, it's been reported that we're in a recession. I know that some people say we're in a recovery. I don't know where it is. I mean,
it's in the hospital. I think there are people in the hospital.
Right.
I think
I look at
they're not out here.
I say, should I believe the media or my own lying eyes? You know, it's a really tough. But anyway, in spite of the fact that we're in a recession, that there were, I think it was reported, 357 of what you call those one-house bills just to pad the pensions of the public sector unions. Do they know these aren't going anywhere? What is just to curry favor with the public sector union?
Yes, that's exactly what they do.
But let's break that down, though, because I think our viewers need to understand. What do you mean to pad the bill? How are the bills connected to the pension?
We know one of the biggest costs driving up property taxes, school taxes, is the pension system in New York. It's been well reported many times that it is so out of sync with the private sector and the rest of the nation.
Yeah, the benefits packages and everything.
Yet still. And again, here Cuomo ran that we're going to rein this in, and that this was in the news every day. The pensions, yet there were 357 individual things to increase the pension benefits for the public sector worker bills.
Yeah.
That were one-house bills. This is what I'm talking about. I'm saying this is just to curry favor with the unions.
Any bill that is a one-house bill is a bill that is designed to make a statement to your constituents.
So it's posturing.
Constituents,
right.
Or the public, or the people. You know, they say that the state government is owned by the public sector unions. How strong is their influence?
Well, everything devolves in the assembly from Sheldon Silver down.
Right.
Sheldon Silver is the greatest proponent of the Speaker of the Assembly, is the greatest proponent and defender and champion of the public sector unions in the Assembly.
And how long has he been there?
He's been there now almost 20 years, as the Assembly Speaker.
You didn't have gray hair when he started.
Well, I mean, I am amazed at the degree of power to see it up front.
That's what I'm saying. What is it to see it up front, to see this influence? How helpless do you feel, or is this why they give you the Dr. No, because it's your way of fighting back against this?
Well, in the first place, I'm going to be voting on bills. If I don't agree with the bill, I'm going to vote against it. I gave Bruce one graphic example one evening, and
talk about it.
Surely I can.
Let's talk about it.
There was a bill to do a study on whether or not mutilation of a female's genitals, the way in which that is done in many Muslim cultures, especially in northern Africa, in the northern part of Africa, whether or not that has a harmful long-term effect to the woman.
As if
they were going to study this.
Now, yes, and now I made the comment. I asked if, you know, as a doctor, the female's clitoris is the analog of a penis in a male. Right. So I posited the question that, do we really need to do a study on whether or not cutting off a male's penis would be deleterious for him, would be harmful for him in the long run? Do we really need to do a study on that?
You said it was analogous to that.
Analogous.
Right.
And so, what kind of study is that? But I'll give one that's even more graphic. At the end of the session, there was a bill put in to have defibrillators put into all dentists' offices. You know, you take the pads, look out everybody, okay, when someone's having cardiac arrest. Okay, so a simple question was asked to the sponsor of that bill. How much does a defibrillator cost? What are we talking about as the cost to the end user of this bill? Are we talking about $15,000? Are we talking $39.50? How much is it? The sponsor did not know.
This is when we heard the first time when we heard the Dr. Knows, you keep talking about cost analysis on these bills.
Yes.
And you were amazed that these people had not a clue.
That's right. So on my first bill that I put in January.
It's not their money.
Right.
The first bill that I put in January that will have a Senate sponsor is a bill that will do the following. It will demand that any bill that is put before the Assembly have a sponsor in the Senate as well. That's number one. Right. And number two, any bill that requires funding by either the state or an end user, such as the dentists, must have a cost analysis done and certified by the Comptroller's office.
Right.
That will at least bring some degree of responsibility to the legislature, and it will cut down the number of bills that we see by 90%.
Yeah, but don't you think
so you're introducing that just as a bill?
I'm introducing
now,
that
is there, you know, speaking to your very point, do you have somebody in the Senate that's going to introduce that with you?
Yes,
you do? Okay.
I do.
Right.
Yeah, but don't you think this is going to drive up the cost of government to the taxpayer? Because now these representatives are going to have to hire somebody on their staff that knows what they're doing.
No, we're going to give the comptroller some more work to
That
do.
means he's got to know what he's doing.
Well, I'm, you know,
That's going to cost money because they got to hire somebody that's actually got a brain up there.
But you know what? It'll be offset by the fact that in reality, having been up in Albany for the last 6 months, there is no need for the legislature to be in there for more than 60 days.
Really?
Maximum.
Okay, right.
That's why it was designed as a part-time
because
job.
if you get rid of the one House bills and you get rid of the other disgrace that I've watched, which are the home rule bills.
What is a home rule bill?
Okay, a home rule bill.
Second time you mentioned it.
Okay,
already.
and I'm mentioning it for a good reason. Home rule bills are bills that are requested by your local government, by either the municipality or the county that you represent.
Oh, Bloomberg does this a lot for New York City.
To put forth a bill that has to that requires, quote, the oversight of the state legislature in order to get that local bill approved.
Right.
That local ordinance. The big example this year was many counties wanted to have extensions, not increases, but an extension, a 1 or 2 year extension on their current sales tax.
Right.
We did not look at any increases, sales tax increases, because the Senate made it clear they will not even take a bill which is an increase
Right,
up.
sure.
Okay? So, what happens is, in the last 2 weeks, we see 3/4 of all the bills that we vote on. Okay? Out of those bills, 3/4 of those are the home rule bills.
Right.
Now, we at this point are going through what the legislature refers to as the lightning round, where I might be voting on a bill every 30 seconds.
Wow.
Every 30 seconds. We get these home rule bills maybe 15 minutes, maybe a half an hour before they're to be voted on. Now, quite frankly, if there's supposed to be statewide oversight, if that's the idea of the home rule bill, and there's another nefarious part of it that I'll tell you in a minute, then number one, I, Stephen Katz, nor anyone in the New York City delegation know what the financial and fiscal requirements of Chemung County are.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Or Oneonta, or Oswego, Toyota, makes no difference. We know nothing about those places.
And what you're saying is they don't want you to know anything about it. Really?
Not
right?
only do they not want you to know, but what business do I have making
Telling
a vote
them,
on
right.
a local
Yeah,
issue?
why don't
That
they
is
let
something
the
that
county
the county
decide?
should take
Right.
care of it,
Right.
and that be it. So number one, so there's 3/4 of the waste in bills that I see in Albany.
Right.
And the second thing that they do with these home rule bills is they use them as political hostages, meaning here, we needed in Putnam County, for example, and in Westchester, we needed the extensions for the sales taxes.
Right.
As a home rule bill, okay, that the assembly has to vote on. If I was not a good boy during my time in the sessions, what would happen would be that Sheldon Silver would either make sure that the Democratic conference in the assembly vote the bill down,
Right.
or he would actually have them leave the assembly so that there would not be enough people for a
votes,
quorum,
right.
so you couldn't vote on it. They are nothing but political hostages, and they are a complete hypocrisy to think that we are doing any oversight on these local county issues. We are not, and therefore we have no business in voting on these. They are the bailiwick of the individual counties who know a whole lot better what their needs are than for someone like me to take a look and vote yes or no on something I know nothing about and have been given no time to
You know,
discuss.
you know what's hard to believe, Steve, is that when you're describing all of this whatever word you want to use, boondoggle, you know, nonsense. It's hard to believe that you're the first and only legislator who's been elected who's looked at this and said, this is unacceptable, let's do something about it.
I'll tell you what,
legislators like you?
I'll tell you what I found, Bruce, at this point, is number one, when I first got there in January, and everyone is telling me how horrible it's going to be those last 3 weeks, that you'll be there till 3 o'clock in the morning and bill after bill. So I asked a question. Why don't we do those now? Because in the first 2 months that we are there, we might see and vote on, maybe in the course of a day, 2 or 3 bills. Whereas in the end, we're working on 100 bills in a day.
Was it really until 3 o'clock in the morning? Were they exaggerating?
A little bit, but not much, man, I'll tell you. It was not pretty and it was ridiculous. But I asked, well, why don't we do these home rule bills now so that we won't have this at the end? And their answer to me was one of 2 things. And these were the leaders. They would say, number 1, you're on Albany time now. Okay? Or number 2, welcome to Albany. And I found that to be an insult to my intelligence.
Wait a minute.
An insult to the taxpayers in our state. And so I was so appalled, first of all. And now I see exactly what the deal is. On those first 2 months, Bruce, we're starting our session at maybe 2:30 in the afternoon. 15 minutes of the session is going to be introductions. We'd like to introduce today the Scarsdale Marching Band. Okay, let's give them all an assembly welcome and give them all the benefits and of a guest in the assembly.
Yeah, but if they didn't do that, then Castelli would have nothing to send a press release on.
And then we'd spend so the session might start at 2:30 and we would be over at 2:55. Okay, and so I'm saying, why don't we do those bills now? That's just not the way. So my opinion, Bruce, to answer your question, it is my opinion that if you have been there, I looked at these people and I'm saying, you guys have been here 20 plus years and you think this is okay. If you are there and you think that the way we do business in Albany, to waste taxpayer dollars and easily 4 months of people's time is okay, then it's time for you to go. You have no business
in order for that to happen,
Albany.
we need to know who they are, right? We need to know the names.
All you have to do, I'll be honest with you, and this is almost to a person, you have to look and see how long they've been in. And if they've been in for over 8 years, they've been in too long.
Yeah, but do they really consider it taxpayer money, or is it their money that they let us keep some of it? The mentality.
The mentality, for the most part, is what you're trying to say right now, proprietary. And
we're lucky they let us keep some.
It's the new people who are voting against that, are fighting against it, but there's not a lot of
And I also know, Assemblyman Katz, that a natural segue from what you just said is that you are in favor of term limits.
Absolutely.
Right. For that reason, you feel that once somebody is there too long, a negative status quo will prevail and it never will change.
I call it
we
being
have seen that locally. We have seen that with our local, politicians up in Albany. We saw that with Vinnie Libel.
So it's an institutionalized mentality.
And there are a whole lot of them up there, I must say.
So you say the only way that the situation you describe is going to change is if people know who not to vote for or who to vote out.
Exactly. But here's a better and by and large, I'm one that I could actually pretty much say the baby with the bathwater. If they've been in 10 years.
Really? 10 or more years?
10 or more years. You've been into...
But there must be some exceptions.
Of course there are.
Yeah, right.
Of course, that's what I'm saying, baby with the bathwater.
Okay, right.
There are exceptions. And I will tell you, by and large, the people that I've met up there they have integrity, they are good people, they're intelligent, and in their own way, they're trying to do what they think is best.
Right.
Okay, that is the majority.
For the people?
Right.
I would say pretty much for the people, okay? You got to remember, they're all politicians. There are some that are certainly, I mean, look, we just saw in the news 2 weeks ago that Vito Lopez, who sits in front of me, who is a very nice man, is under investigation because he paid his treasurer of his not-for-profit, sound familiar? Yeah. Of his not-for-profit over $600,000. Right. He paid his girlfriend over $200,000, who also is a city a city planner.
Right.
Steve, why do members of the governing body, they see a Vinny Leibel, a Vito Lopez, Joe Crowley, they're investigated by the feds. Now, feds have got a 100% track record so far. Why do they sit silent about it?
100%.
Why aren't these people shunned by the members of their body for just for bringing the disgrace of this kind of investigation?
By the way, are you saying 100% convictions?
100%. Yeah, they haven't lost one yet when they went after a New York politician.
Okay.
They ain't lost one yet.
Right.
You know why?
But why do they still say my colleague, my friend? They know that this has got to be true. They can't be stupid.
I don't disagree with you.
Right.
And that's part of why people like myself ended up running. We're sick of that. We're sick of hearing about it, but not that. We haven't crossed the threshold of people like myself representing a majority of the legislators up
Exactly
Don't
right.
they
You're
have
the
any-
exception,
don't
unfortunately.
they have-
Unfortunately, at this
these
point.
people have any shame
No.
to say, I don't want to know you? How dare you do this? We got a tough enough job. We're trying to find as much money as we can to help as many, and you're putting it in your pocket and your cousin's pocket?
Well, I'm looking at the people who are there, and I'm looking at people who are under indictment. I'm looking at people, I'm looking at people who you have to have as far as I'm concerned, man, you got to have a cast iron stomach to be abusing the system, to be abusing your position, to be abusing the taxpayer faith that they put in you. I am disgusted by these people.
How can their fellow representatives still earmark money to their organizations? This is what I'm saying.
Well,
I'm not saying an indictment is a conviction. Well, let's say the presumption of innocence. But then shouldn't the representatives err on the side of the taxpayer and say, clean up your mess, and when we know you're all right, then we'll send you money?
Ask Sheldon Silver.
Right. With only a couple...
Ask Sheldon Silver. That is a question to be asked the Speaker of the Assembly, who sets the tone for the place, who does his disciplining and does his rewarding. That is what I see.
You have a tough job. This must be tough to
With only a couple of
very
minutes.
Hard to,
we went through this
We
already?
have literally 2 minutes left, but I think the final question, culminating in the previous 30 minutes, Steve, is what are the what can be done? I mean, you did say people have to vote these people out. Is there anything else that can be done? I mean, what is the realistic odds? What are the realistic odds that this will change the situation that you described anytime soon?
I think that at this point it's going to be a slow process.
Right.
I think that the 2012 election is going to be key and pivotal for the state of New York to see how, look, the Assembly has been Democratic for the last 40 years. Look at where we are. I don't care whether I'm a Republican or a Democrat or anything. I'm a businessman. You failed 40 years. It's time to get out. These people have no grace.
Right.
These people, you have to pry them out with a crowbar because they're so used to their position and privilege. And that is what there are ways that we're going to try to do it.
Yeah, we're going to need to wrap it up. But
one question now.
Yeah,
am I correct that all we have to do
yeah.
is flip one more Democrat seat and Sheldon Silver loses his supermajority? That he can't just ramrod these vetoes through anymore.
He's already lost that.
Yeah. Okay, we got to.
He did lose it. Okay, good.
Steve, thank you so much for being on.
Yes.
We appreciate your candor
Steve,
too.
I'm glad you came.
And we want to remind you that
My
the
pleasure.
opinions have been mine of the previous 30 minutes,
and they were mine.
and you may beg to differ.
Good evening. We'll see you next week. This was a good. I knew you would be good. I knew.